This is Yair Davidiy, representing Brit-Am Hebrew Awareness. Today we are about to discuss the legend of Tea Tephi, who's the daughter of a king of Judah who came to Ireland and married a son of a local king, and from their descendants emerged kings of Ireland, and also after that kings of Scotland, and finally kings of England. And through this girl, Tea Tephi, the English lineage, the royal lineage of England can trace itself back to King David. We believe that there are other ways, stronger ways, more certain ways, more substantial ways in which the same may be said. But all of it, the legend of Tea Tephi has received appreciation in the general public. That is what people know about, this is what people appreciate. There's a romantic side to it, and so and it has an importance if for that alone. It has also a symbolic importance, so that's what we'll talk about, because it's worth knowing the background. So the first king of Israel, originally the two halves of Israel, Israel and Judah. Judah comprised, at least at the end, Judah, the tribe of Judah, also the tribe of Benjamin, most of the tribe of Levi, and minority representatives of all the other tribes. The rest of Israel, 10 tribes, were in the north. So how did it get that way? At first we had King Saul ruling over all the tribes of Israel. Then came King David. After King David, the reign of all Israel, King Solomon. After King Solomon, his son Rehoboam in English transliteration, Rehoboam also reigned over all Israel. In the time of Rehoboam, the northern 10 tribes separated. They established their own kingdom in the north. Under King Jeroboam in Hebrew, Jeroboam, in the north, over the 10 tribes of Israel, and they were separated from the tribes of Judah. Meanwhile, Judah remained an independent country in its own right, and they reigned in Judah Abiam, and after Rehoboam they reigned in Judah Abiam, Asa, Yehoshaphat, Jehoram, Ahaziah, Queen Atalia, Joash, Amaziah, Uzziah, also known as Azariah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah. Now, through the reigns of the last 4, Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, the 10 tribes were exiled by the Assyrians. They were exiled in stages. They were all taken away to areas and portions of the Assyrian Empire, and they already lost consciousness of their ancestry, and they had abandoned the God of Israel, and in their places of exile, they linked up with other peoples, they federated with other peoples, became different historical entities that we know of, including the Scythians, the Cimmerians, and also others, and through different pathways of migration, both by way of the sea and overland, they eventually converged in Western Europe, where they gave rise to West European entities from there, also Canada, the USA, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and so on. And they became especially important in the British Isles. They gave rise to the British Empire, and after that to the USA and America. And that is where they are. That is where the descendants of the 10 tribes are. Meanwhile, after the 10 tribes have been exiled, the kingdom of Judah continued. King Hezekiah, during whose reign the last of the 10 tribes were taken away, there reigned King Manasseh, then King Ammon, then King Josiah, then King Jehoahaz, then King Jehoiakim, also known as Eliakim, Jehoiachin, and then Zedekiah. He was the last king of Judah. Zedekiah was the last king of Judah before the destruction of the kingdom by King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. The Babylonians conquered Judah, and they destroyed the city of Jerusalem and the temple. This was also during the period of the time of the prophet Jeremiah. The city of Jerusalem was captured by the Babylonians. The city and temple were destroyed. the sons of Zedekiah, King Zedekiah, were murdered in front of him. Then his eyes were put out and he was taken to Babylon. See 2 Kings 25, 1-7, Jeremiah 32, 4-5, 34, 2-3, 39, 1-7, 52, 4-11, Ezekiel 12, 13. His daughters, the daughters of the king remained. The daughters of King Zedekiah remained. We have here all the sons of the king were killed. His daughters remained. But it's important to remember that there were other members of the family of David. David himself had quite a few children, at least 20 listed in the Bible. Solomon had a lot of children. Some of his children are listed in the Bible, referred to. All the kings of Judah were prolific. It's mentioned several times. All of them had several wives, and from each of these wives they usually had children. And this is also referred to in Jeremiah. In the future, the seed of David will be as the sand of the sea. In the future, the seed of David will be as the sand of the sea. So there must have been a lot of descendants of David through the male line, just because, and each one of them, especially those who come from the lineage of Solomon, your David, Solomon, you might be able to claim that the brothers of Solomon, that it had been promised to Solomon that it had been promised to David that the future lineage of his family would come through Solomon. And so that leaves a lot of brothers of Solomon who must have had children, but they were not of the royal lineage. They were not automatically deserving to rule over Israel as the seed of Solomon was. But even so, the seed of Solomon must have numbered in the thousands already at that time. So there must have been thousands, indications are that there were thousands of descendants of David still around. And some of them, most of them, have probably remained with Judah. But here too we have indications that a few of them had somehow or other migrated, moved into the northern kingdom of Israel. This is similar to what happened in England and Scotland. You had the Normans, the Norman barons, the Norman rulers over England. Actually, before then you had the Saxon rulers over England. And when they were defeated, some of them went into Scotland and became nobles there. So too, the Normans were over England, but in different ways. Descendants of the Normans also moved into Scotland. And they became part of the royal lineage there. Robert Bruce, the first real king of Scotland, he was a Norman descent. So too, in this way, you had a lot of descendants of David who were together with the 10 tribes. As we have other indications, we find evidence of this. Why do I mention all this? Because some people have the idea that when the sons of King Zedekiah were murdered in front of him, he had no living male sons left. There were no living male descendants of David around, that the whole of the lineage converged on the daughters of Zedekiah, and this is not so. There must have been a very large number of descendants of David around, all over the place. At all events, we are concerned with the legend of Was Tea Tephi as given to us. So, the daughters of King Zedekiah remained. Most of the inhabitants of Judea were taken to Babylon. A small portion were left behind. They were under the supervision of Gedaliah, son of Pashhur, and also Jeremiah was with them, and Baruch the scribe, who was the disciple of Jeremiah, and daughters of King Zedekiah, who were in the charge of Jeremiah. Then a rebel of the Jews, a member of the royal house somehow or other, for some reason he came up, he murdered Gedaliah and most of the Jews with him. The few survivors that remained out of this small parcel of people, they were afraid that the Babylonians would return and they would be angry that Gedaliah, who was their representative, had been murdered, and they might take a vengeance on them. So they decided to flee to Egypt, and they went to Egypt and they took Jeremiah and his daughters and Baruch with them. Jewish traditions, Jewish legends indicate that somehow either Jeremiah and Baruch also went to Babylon, but we don't know. At all events, according to the legend concerning Tea Tephi, Jeremiah, or in some versions Baruch Ben Neriah, the disciple of Jeremiah, they travelled by ship with the daughters and they came to Spain. From Spain, they moved to Ireland. In Ireland, Tea Tephi, one of the daughters, married Heremon, the king of Ireland, or the son of the king of Ireland, and he was of the Milesian lineage. They were the last great conquerors of Ireland. They were also known as Gaels, and from there they moved to Scotland, and from there they eventually moved to England. Now, in the 1800s, now in the 1800s in England, there was a movement known as British Israel. They believed that the British English-speaking peoples were descended from the tribes of Israel, the lost tribes of Israel, and they also had the idea that their rulers, the kings of England, also had a similar lineage, possibly from King David, and they were some of them were quite scholarly. They were quite learned. There was a certain person, Frederick Robert Augustus Glover, 1800 to 1881, and served as a chaplain of the consulate at Cologne in Western Germany. At that time, Germany had been divided into different countries. It was not one country, so he was a chaplain to the embassy of a German principality in the Western End. And Glover, this chaplain, he believed in British Israel teachings. He was quite learned, and he became one of its better-known writers. And amongst other works, he wrote England, the Remnant of Judah, and the Israel of Ephraim. It was published in 1881. Got that? Frederick Robert Augustus Glover, the book England, the Remnant of Judah, and the Israel of Ephraim, 1891. And in this book he reconstructs from Irish sources the story of Tea Tephi. He also believed that when they came to Ireland, it is Jeremiah and his entourage, and including the daughters, also brought the Ark of the Covenant with them, and they brought the stone of consecration, which was a stone on which Jacob had slept and had the dream of the kings going up and down. And on this stone, he understood that the kings of Israel had been consecrated, and it had a special symbolic value. And they brought this stone with them to Ireland, and from Ireland it was taken to Scotland. From Scotland it was taken to England, and it is now the stone of Scone on which the English monarchs are crowned, are consecrated. So we get back to that. Glover also believed that the Ark of the Covenant had been brought with his people, and it was at Tara Hill. Tara Hill is a sacred centre in Ireland. It is an archaeological site, well known, near the coast in east central Ireland, and it had been a burial site for hundreds of people. Important nobles were made there. It's quite impressive. It's quite a symbolic, an impressive monument. It's also a holy place and the seat of royalty. And a stone known as the Leah was brought to Ireland. Known as the Leah, the stone of destiny, has been brought to Ireland, either by the sons of Dan, or other sources say by the Milesians. And other sources say that Tea Tephi had also brought it with her. And it was said to cry out under the foot of the true king. And this stone became identified with the holy stones on which the kings of Ireland were concentrated. As we said, Glover helped inspire an archaeological expedition that dug up part of the hill of Tara, looking for the Ark of the Covenant. They didn't find it. It's worth noting that on the hill of Tara, it was a burial site for the kings of Ireland, for royalty. And on the hill of Tara they have what is a kind of dolmen, a large dolmen, a series of tombs constructed out of boulders and overlaid with an earth overlay. It's quite a large edifice with an overlying of earth. And on the summer solstice, that is around June, end of June, summer solstice, the sun shines through a hole in the roof and shines right onto a certain spot. And that's the only day of the year, or only 2 days of the year that this happens. So this is important for us because it shows that at that time, the seasons were the same as they are now. And that is that this edifice was constructed after the Israelites had been exiled from the land of Israel. Because as Emmanuel Velikovsky showed, the seasons changed after that time. The seasons changed. And if it had been constructed before then, the sun would not shine through on the solstice. So that is worth noting. At all events, that is worth noting that there are similar monuments to this. Actually, it's quite common concerning dolmens and megalithic monuments that we have this phenomenon, and it proves that their dates do belong to a period after those 10 tribes have been exiled, because we believe that these type of edifices, these megalithic monuments, these dolmens, were brought to Ireland and brought to England and brought to the West by Israelites, by migrating Israelites, as the prophet Jeremiah told them to do. Getting back to the story of Tea Tephi, after Glover published his work, it was also Reverend A.B. Grimaldi. In 1877, he also showed a pedigree of Queen Victoria from the Bible Kings, tracing it through Tea Tephi. So there was W.M.H. Milner in a booklet, The Royal House of Britain, An Enduring Dynasty, 1902, revised 1909. And others such as Charles Fox, and they all trace the lineage of Queen Victoria back to King David through Tea Tephi. Queen Victoria was aware of this. It's also been claimed that the Royal House of England at that time helped subsidise, helped promote the research and the publication of these works. They believed in it and it helped them. And so it had importance. It had importance also on the political, cultural level of England at the time. It was well known and millions of people believed in it, or were, one could say, titillated by the idea. They may not have absolutely had faith. They may not have had absolute faith in it, but they liked the idea that there was something there. A good child in 1897 wrote the Book of Tephi. He used old Irish sources, but he may have added bits and pieces of his own, as has been claimed, and it's not certain. There's in a lot of these works, there's a little bit of fanciful imagination of extrapolation alongside genuine scholarship. So that's what we have. Herman Hoey, Compendium of World History in 1970, who we corresponded with, who liked our work, who encouraged his followers to purchase our work, the tribes, and he also wrote on this matter, and he said that the Milesian royal house, that is, was from an earlier bloodline that had entered Britain much before then, much before the time of Tea Tephi, according to her association with Jeremiah. That's another point. We also correspond with a follower of ours, Tubal-Cain, Eric. He also brings Irish sources showing that the idea of Tea Tephi was based on old Irish legends and chronicles that don't necessarily substantiate it, but they show that there's something there, that there's some type of traditional existence for the people concerned. And so this too is something, and it shows that there are sources that are worth going into even more than they have been, which is also somewhat surprising considering that the idea of Tea Tephi is more than 150 years old, and it's been very popular, and a lot of the people who interested in it and promoted it, they knew Irish, they knew old languages, they were classical scholars, they were well educated, and they were studious, and they could have or should have done more work on the subject to go more deeply into the sources, but that is something else. That is the way things go. Other documents, we have an article on our website concerning them, concerning different versions, but I do show that there was something there. There was a well-known legend of a daughter of a king coming from Spain to Ireland, and she has a name similar to Tea Tephi, Tepis or something like that, and she did marry a king named Heremon, which is another version of Heremon, the king whom Tea Tephi married, and this couple is associated with the lineage of Niall of the 9 hostages, whose lineage actually began quite a while after the time of Jeremiah, maybe into 300 CE. And or perhaps a little earlier. At all events, they became quite famous, quite important, and they dominated the whole of Ireland from the 500 CE to the 900 CE, and they remained important right up into our time. But somehow or other, this royal house is also associated with Tea Tephi. If she ever existed, perhaps they are descended from her and Heremon. Who knows? That is another possibility. And Tea Tephi does seem to be mentioned in Irish chronicles, but they are confused. It's not certain. It's not that clear as to what they're saying. But she was a princess, able to trace her back to one of the daughters of King Zedekiah, been brought to Ireland by Jeremiah. That is a legend. What is important to us is a legend, and while we are noting that there may be something there, but more work has to be done. Another point worth noting, actually more important than anything else, is the tradition that Tea Tephi, when she came with Jeremiah to Ireland, she brought with her a stone, and this stone has been identified with the stone of destiny, and this on which Irish kings were traditionally consecrated, just like Israelite kings and Judean kings have been consecrated, and this stone was eventually taken from Ireland to Scotland, and from Scotland it was taken to England, and it became the stone of Scone, on which British monarchs have been consecrated up until this day. So, and this stone, according to tradition, English tradition and other tradition, was the stone upon which Jacob slept and had his dream of the angels going up and down when he was in Bethel, and this symbolized the rise and fall of kingdoms and the eventual emergence of his seed as being rulers over a good portion of the earth, as indeed happened through the British-speaking people. So discuss this in another video clip and in articles on our website. Thank you very much. May the Lord God of Israel bless you.